lot of people would think that, if you're going to business school, that sort of completely preps you with an entrepreneurial mindset. But I don't feel that's the case. Be it for a institution like Kelly, or even institutions better than that. Even in the US, usually business schools, this is sort of a little bit of the irony of the situation, but even business schools there are a little bit more tuned towards the job market.
You didn't think of doing your MBA?
So I've got a very hot take in the MBA. Why we buy something is not very logical. It's very emotional. Is IVF and IUI the only option? Or can I do something before as a preventive healthcare treatment? A lot of people say good products market themselves. I feel it's to a very small extent, but you need to be the loudest cheerleader. I asked my female friends, do you know of a brand which is sort of like a kind of like best friend for you? Initially, there were so many things which were going on in my mind. I'm 23, 24 years old. I don't know the B of building a business. I don't know how to hire people. I don't know how to manage people. There are so many things which, all the things are, whatever you do, you have to figure out everything which you're doing, and it's horribly daunting. So that was the first thing. Second thing is that, can I build a women's health and wellness business being a male? The reason why we started Dame Health in the first place is because in India also you know a lot of, even for a woman, you would know many hair care brands, many skincare brands, but you rarely know of a brand that is talking to you about the gynecological issues. Okay, supposing if I'm for menopausal women, they're having hot flushes, night sweats. How do you deal with them basically? When do you actually expect something like this to come or not? For somebody who's having heavy menstrual bleeding, what is regular? What is heavy? When should you consult a doctor? When should you not consult a doctor? I wake up in the morning, I think about the brand. I'm having breakfast, I think about the brand. I go to office, I think about the brand. I come back home, I have dinner, I think about the brand.
Do you think like books, we are reading books of successful people. Yes, we are reading about their journeys, how they started, but we are still reading about successful people.
Yeah.
Again, on Shark Tank, people come when they're successful to a point. Do you think it's setting unexpected expectations in the minds of people who want to start their business or startups?
If somebody takes away anything from the podcast, I feel it should be this, that start as early as possible.
Do you think it's the right time for India to begin with startup, or is it a good time for startups to, go pan-India or maybe even internationally? Welcome to The Speaking Edge, where we empower the youth with the skills and mindset needed for success. Today, we have Sahil Agarwal, co-founder of Dame Health, a pioneering gynecological health and wellness brand in India. Sahil's journey is a testament to the power of combining business acumen with purpose. Growing up in a family of doctors, he took a different path, studying commerce at La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata, and later earning a triple major from Kelly School of Business, Indiana University. He excelled academically as a Dean Scholar and gained corporate experience at T-Mobile and a market research firm in Chicago before deciding to return to India. Recognizing the gaps in reproductive healthcare, he partnered with his father, Dr. Rajiv Agarwal, a renowned gynecologist, to launch Dame Health, now one of India's fastest growing D2C health brands. Through science-backed solutions, Dame Health is transforming awareness and accessibility in reproductive wellness. Today, we'll dive into his journey and lessons from entrepreneurship and the skills young people need to build impactful careers. Let's welcome Sahil Agarwal to The Speaking Edge. Hi, Sahil. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure, and thank you so much for the heartfelt introduction. It's really an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So your journey at Kelly School of Business, how did it shape you to be an entrepreneur?
So I think the entire experience of going abroad and studying, somebody who's been born and brought up in India, the curriculum in India, the way of teaching in India is very different from what it is abroad. Everybody talks about the same thing कि US में जाओ तो अलग type की education होती है basically. So when I went there, definitely the mindset is very different in terms of it's an application based curriculum. So whatever you're learning in theory is what you're applying there in some sort of like, strategy, or, 4 or 5 people in a team are making some sort of, part of a case competition or something like that. So from that perspective, it was quite good because, you keep hearing about these buzzwords growing up, strategy, financial planning, etc. But to put context behind it of exactly what it is and how are you supposed to use it is something which I feel it did very well. And it gives a good base because again, when you're running any business, sales, marketing, finance, accounts, all of these are different divisions which works hand in hand. And when you take such a wide breadth of courses, you get to understand how one works with the other. So that way it was quite good. But somebody like, a lot of people would think that, if you're going to business school, that sort of completely preps you with an entrepreneurial mindset. But I don't feel that's the case. Be it for an institution like Kelly, or even institutions better than that. Even in the US, usually business schools, this is sort of a little bit of the irony of the situation, but even business schools there are a little bit more tuned towards the job market, basically.
Okay.
So whatever skills you learn, when people like, when professors tell you the skill, the next thing that they'll tell you is that this is something which is really important to get a really good job.
Okay.
Or, this will work very well for your CV. Employers look for this in a CV. So all of this might help in the business as well, but that's not the mindset with which they're teaching you this, basically. So I think that's something which is going to be there in any business school.
Okay.
And again, the tough thing about a little bit about entrepreneurship is that what do you teach there? So but otherwise it was a great stepping stone.
So do they have any like such projects where they ask you to plan a startup or, any kind such projects that you are supposed to do and the university actually, takes interest in it?
So there are a lot of, so you've got different courses where, 4 or 5 people might come together and they might tell you, okay, come up with a startup idea, talk about the problem, what problem are you trying to cater to, who are you trying to cater to, what solution are you coming up with, do like a SWOT analysis, basically strength, weakness, opportunity, threat of, of your idea. So that basic analysis of the idea is something which they do very well. But again, that is, in my view, that's again the easier part. Okay. Whatever I have pitched in, even when I used to do these different sort of competitions or in these classes, that is probably the most easiest part of the entire thing, because the toughest part is actually coming with a lot of people together and implementing what is there. And because there's such a huge difference in that part, I feel it doesn't do justice by saying that, it really prepares you very well for an entrepreneurial journey. Basically.
Okay, that's interesting. So why triple major?
So when I went there initially, I am somebody who's been very drawn towards marketing. Why do brands do what they do? Why do people think the way they think? And what actually makes you purchase stuff? Like, even if you see everything around us, why we buy something is not very logical. It's very like, emotional. People are buying like, lakhs of worth of Birkin bags. It's ultimately a bag. But what puts value in that bag and how can you build a brand that puts value in it is something which I feel is very, very fascinating. So because of this, I wanted to take up marketing, especially consumer psychology, as the specific division in marketing. Okay. And I've also been always very fascinated with numbers, not maths numbers. That's something which I've always run away from. But like, how to analyze something. And analysis is a very buzzword, but it can be something like simply like an Excel file of, how you're cutting it and chopping it to get a good graph and a good idea of, what's exactly happening. So the two of them work very well because marketing is something, okay, you can only understand what's working well if you're putting numbers behind it to put some tangible, chal raha hai mera campaign. Kaisa chal raha hai, kisi ko nahi malum. So when you put numbers behind it, it's more easy for you to understand what's working, what's not working, which is the reason why I put marketing and business analytics as a good major with me. And information systems is coming from my childhood thing of, doing coding. Again, especially the era where I'm growing up with all the Facebooks and the Googles in the world, like, I've always wanted to do coding. So I thought that let me do something which is part business and part computer science, which is information systems, which is basically there's a lot of data which brands have or companies have, but how do they use that data to get better insights, basically. So that's what information systems is. So I thought these three majors work very well hand in hand. So
did all the majors complement each other?
To some extent, yes. There are definitely some parts which are more extra, but there was a lot of things which were common between the three majors, so it worked out quite well for me.
So when you say numbers, is it sales?
It's not just sales. So for example, it can be, sales is one of them. For example, it might be something, so sales is the very ultimate goal. Okay, supposing you're running a campaign. Now you're running an ad on Instagram or you're running an ad on Facebook. How many people did the ad reach? How many people clicked on the ad? Once the person clicked on the ad, how many people actually went to your product page and saw the product? How many people from the product page went to the shopping cart to buy? So all of these things, once you start tracking it, only then you realize, okay, like a lot of other brands are getting a conversion rate from a lot of, like, if the 1,000 people, 300 people are landing on their website, but only 100 people are landing on my website. So there's something wrong which I'm doing. How do you know when you're doing something wrong? Because otherwise it's unlike like a grocery store or like a shopping market where you're standing in front of them and you're shopping, you're seeing the experience which they have. You can see what's going right or wrong. But they're doing it from the comfort of their home. So it's very difficult for you to sit in an office and understand what is going wrong. Sometimes if a payment issue is happening on the website, it might take us around a day and a half, 2 days for us to even be able to understand, because the feedback takes time to come. So that's basically the entire thing. Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't think of doing your MBA?
So I've got a very hot take on the MBA. I think MBA, they say India mein to again, I think it's every household where, MBA is more like a life insurance. Like a FD. कि चलो MBA तो कर लो और कुछ नहीं हो तो शादी तो अच्छे से हो जाएगी अगर MBA कर लोगे तो. So I genuinely feel, probably my parents will disagree, but I genuinely feel that an MBA is really losing its value in today's day and age.
I agree.
Especially because I think an MBA, number one, as I mentioned to you earlier, that whatever you do in an MBA will always be more strategy oriented, but that is not the more difficult part. The more difficult part is actually executing it. For example, in an MBA, it is very difficult for them to teach you, okay, even in our business school, we are learning such big courses, but and this is okay, for example, if Procter and Gamble had to launch a new product, what would they do? Or there's some civil war crisis going on in some countries. So, how does a company manage that? Those are very high level problems which you start, as a consultant, you feel so nice dealing with them. But when you come back to you're starting your own business, the problem which you have is that I have 1,000 followers on Instagram. How do I grow it to 1,500? Okay, this one influencer, she's charging me 50K for a reel. And I don't know if that 50K is actually worth it or not. There's my video editor. My video editor is telling me, या तो आप मेरे salary बढ़ाइए, या तो I increased the salary 3 months ago. आप या तो मेरे salary बढ़ाइए, otherwise I'll leave the job. How do you? And these are the daily problems which I have. Those are not the problems which I have daily. These are the ones which I have daily. And it sometimes feel very odd that okay, we've been thinking about such big problems, but these are the small problems which are naak mein dam karke rakh dete hain, sort of a thing.
And which are actually big.
These are actually big problems for the brand. And it's a culmination of these problems, like 30-40 problems that constantly keep happening. And there is a 365-day chaos which keeps happening in a brand. But I feel that same thing in the US and in India, like 80-85% of MBAs are not being hired. Because the tangible skills which people need, not only in business, but in jobs also, I feel employers don't realize exactly what they need. And universities don't know exactly what to teach. So I feel that difference really comes for the MBA, which is the reason. And plus, since I started my own brand now, in the past 1.5 years, this has been an accelerated MBA. There's so much which I've learned in the past. There's so much to learn, but there's so much which I've learned. I feel that now taking out an entire year to do an MBA, to do again more of, ultimately it's bookish and theory work, to then come back and implement it again,
doesn't seem practical.
Doesn't seem practical.
Yeah. So even while growing up, that time parents used to say, theories have changed today. Parents want you to do MBA, but earlier they used to say you learn so much at the job that no university can teach you that. So do you feel that you have learned more on the job when you started your startup?
I feel I've learned more in the first 3 to 4 months in my job than I've learned in my 4 years of college. And this is something which I am very, very, very sure of, basically. Because there are so many, the main difference is that when you're in any sort of job, any sort of MBA, any sort of degree, etc., they assign you some task, you do the task, and then they grade you on it.
Okay.
In a business, there's no grading. You don't know how much, it's on your own, you don't even know if you've done well or not, because you constantly have to figure out, what can you do better? There's no benchmark. And I feel that is that's the difficult part of it actually, that you don't know, number one, what parameter are you being assessed on? What parameter do you want to cross? It's more of your own goals which you're setting, and that can be a good thing also because you're setting very ambitious goals for yourself, or it might be something which you're sort of cutting yourself slack and you can actually do better than that. There's nobody to tell you.
So like you mentioned influence marketing. So now influencer marketing is very, very big. And does it work?
It used to work a lot in the days around 7-8 years ago. So that's where the bigger companies which you now know of, Mama Earth, all of the Boat, the sugar. These brands were built around 7-8 years ago. That time again, influencers. Why does influencer marketing work? It's because celebrities seem too distant from us. तो मेरी life है नहीं ऐसी. तो if what shampoo they're using, I don't believe them that they're using that shampoo. That's why influencers came in to give you that trust that okay, I am using this and I am an expert in this, so use it with me and trust me on this. But then influencers are also now growing to such a level, basically 400k, 500k, half a million, 1 lakh following, 2 lakh following. It's going higher and higher up. So somewhere the disconnect will come again, that people don't trust influencers because they're endorsing every second brand every third day, or that's where again then micro influencers come in, or UGC as we call it, basically, of the customers who you have, the users who actually use your product. You make content from that. So that we feel is way more economical and way more believable to the consumer compared to influencer marketing. Also, because one more thing is that with an influencer campaign, supposing somebody's charging you 50,000, 60,000, the reel, people scroll, people see the reel. Then ultimately, people go to your page. On the page, they go to your website. On the website, then they go to search for that product which they've seen on the reel. Then they purchase that. It's a very long journey, and a lot of people get missed out in that journey, basically. So to just hope that okay, I've spent 50,000 and जो भी sales नहीं आया, कम से कम मेरी branding हो गई. That is something which is a little tricky to do because you can't quantify it. You don't know. Consolation that you're doing कि हाँ मेरी branding हो गई.
But you still have to do it, I think.
You still have to do it, but you can do it you can do it a little smartly. To first start really small. Go with people who are much more engaged with their consumers, and then maybe build up, basically. If I'm starting a new brand right now, if I want to really build a lot of buzz around my brand, okay, I want to build a buzz. Let me catch 5-6 really good influencers. Let me the compensation which they're asking for, and my brand will be a hit. You're going to lose all your money day one because it won't happen. You need to build it from the ground up. People who have 5,000, 6,000 followers who seem very raw, उनकी वीडियो भी अच्छी नहीं है. वीडियो भी लगता है कि एकदम खाली they're shooting it from their hand and not very well edited. Those are the ones which these people are not trying too hard. They're not trying too hard to sell it to me. They're just telling their story.
So maybe a common man. A common man can connect to a common man.
Absolutely.
So influencers, I feel now, they don't behave like common people. And somehow I feel people who, feel that they are the regular office going or middle class people who just want to connect with the common man cannot connect with the influence, because first they know that they're being paid to do this.
Absolutely.
Second, they feel that this is not something that, may be right. So something like that. So
absolutely. And plus, at the same time, from an influencer perspective, I know it's a little difficult because today I feel so that again, there are two types of influencers. At least this is in my mind. There are influencers whose primary role is not of an influencer. They're doing something else. Maybe they might be a doctor. They might be tech YouTuber or something like that. And they're an influencer on the side. Then that means they've got a primary source of income. And then they're sort of talking about or, reviewing a product. That way it gives them the leeway to choose which brand they want to work with, which is what they don't want to work with. If I'm only an influencer, then my sort of rosy roti is coming from that influencer collaborations. And then I'm sort of somewhere I'm forced to choose more and more brands. And that's sort of a hole you're digging in for yourself, because the moment you're endorsing 3 different hair care brands in the same month, people will be like, if I'm coming across... It's contradictory. Like, this is the best serum which I've seen in a very long time. And 2 weeks ago, you've already talked about some other brand. People see through it. So I think that's the main difference, which is also the reason why a lot of brands do contracts with the influencer. That, okay, for 1 year, you cannot take any other brand. You need to post about me not only in reels, but in stories. Just... you're maybe taking the shampoo आपके वो window sill जो भी वहाँ पर पड़ा हुआ है, just take a picture, had a great bath experience with XYZ basically. That way the constant experiences work much better than just one reel which you've put out, because that one reel is sort of, people see it, people forget about it. That constant, I would rather have maybe like 500 stories about my brand rather than having one reel about my brand basically. So that's fun.
So did you plan to come back? Or was it by chance, or was it like a moment that you decided, no, I have to go back and do something like this? Was it like a eureka moment or something that happened?
I've always been inclined towards business. And coming from a family of doctors, my grandfather's a doctor, my father's a doctor, my mom's an embryologist, my sister's practicing to become a doctor. So, like,
oh my God.
So you can imagine that class 9 conversation of going up to my father and telling him that I don't want to take up science.
Medicine.
When वो वो जो एकता कपूर की सीरियल में नहीं होता जैसे वो जो बाल वाल गरज रहे ऐसा. So I didn't, number one, एक natural inclination नहीं है towards that, and I felt that even if I go into that, I won't enjoy it. I enjoy commerce. Some people naturally assume you're taking commerce because you're an idiot and you don't want to take science. But there are a lot of people who just enjoy commerce, and that's what I had for me as well. बोलते हैं कि जैसे कि साइंस नहीं लेने से ऑप्शन कम हो जाएंगे, but I didn't want that option in the first place. So I was very sure I wanted to do commerce because I have grown up watching Shark Tank, not the India one, the US one. So since when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I've just watched that day in and day out. So I think it's played a major role in influencing me that, I really want to start something of my own. And even when I went to the US, the plan of starting something of my own was still there. कि वो तो करना ही करना है. Like, maybe let's be a part of the American dream. वहाँ जाके मालूम पड़ा कि American dream is not for Indians. So, because number one, you can't work there anyways. You can't open something there. And plus, studying there, and when I came back for COVID, I realized that, the opportunities which we have in India and the culture that we have in India, I feel it makes so much more sense to open something in India, especially whenever you're going to a different country, US hua, UK hua, Canada hua. Now you're seeing it as well, be it policies of Trump, etc. You are not a native. They will never treat you like a native. They might tell you that, okay, we value you, but it's only till the point of time that you're doing benefit to them. And in that sense, it will always be more difficult for you to get better opportunities, get better resources. In India, there's so many good ways of getting good resources. So, which is the reason why I wanted to come back and start something of my own. The point of starting Dame Health came very near once I was coming back, because we were trying to figure out what is the best way I can add more value. Like, what is the good strength that I can use to actually make, like, a good brand, basically. So that's where Dame Health came.
So now that you've mentioned Dame Health, let's come to that. Let the viewers know what is Dame Health and how did the seed of Dame Health begin?
Absolutely. So first thing is also, why did I start Dame Health? So somebody else could have started a brand. Dame Health is number one. It's India's first gynecological health and wellness brand for men and women, which means that for women, we're into vitamins and supplements from menarche all the way up till menopause, which includes menstruation, PCOS, fertility, pregnancy, menopause. And for men, we're into men's preconception, men's fertility, and some men's general health products as well. The reason why we started Dame Health in the first place is because in India also, you know a lot of, even for a woman, you would know many hair care brands, many skin care brands, but you rarely know of a brand that is talking to you about the gynecological issues. Okay, supposing if I'm for menopausal women, they're having hot flushes, night sweats. How do you deal with them, basically? When do you actually expect something like this to come or not? For somebody who's having heavy menstrual bleeding, what is regular? What is heavy? When should you consult a doctor? When should you not consult a doctor? If supposing I'm trying for, again, just how the economy and how the culture is going, people are slightly delaying marriages in some segments. And again, they want to delay having a baby because, the work takes priority, just, autonomy and freedom takes priority sometimes. So in that sense, when you're sort of trying to conceive at 33, 34, your biological clock is going in the very opposite direction.
Yes.
That's where so many fertility issues are coming up. How can I improve my fertility? Is IVF and IUI the only option? Or can I do something before as a preventive healthcare treatment to actually help me improve my health? Okay. So that is where Dame Health comes in. It's preventive healthcare of, using the power of vitamins and supplements which are clinically proven to be able to improve your health so that, when you think of, you want to conceive, your body is also ready that time. Right. Rather than, you being ready, but your body is not ready at that time. Similarly with pregnancy, similarly with men's fertility. Men's fertility is such a taboo that, if I'm sitting with my friends, I would never talk to them about, my fertility is poor, what are you doing for your fertility? Yeah. It's just something which India doesn't, maybe not India, just the world doesn't work that way, basically. And that's where the problem arises, even for women. Because the moment you miss out on this peer-to-peer discussion, if something is working for me, you don't know what's, I'm not being able to share what's working with me, basically. And that's where a lot of people are not being able to first understand what the problem is and how to treat the problem. So to sort of bring up those uncomfortable conversations, to actually give solutions for the problems which people are having, that's why we launched Dame
And they're paramount to be discussed. I feel, I was reading about it, that women who have problems conceiving, the main issue that they deal with is the men don't want to get
Absolutely.
their test done. The men do not want to agree that there could be any problem with them. And the women, they've got all their tests done and everything. So, this awareness, this taboo has to break. And
It has to break.
It-
50% of couples who have infertility cases, the infertility happens because of men.
men,
And when we say, I'm sure every doctor in the country will agree that, so many of the problems which are happening can simply be treated by diagnosis, but people don't want to do the test in the first place. And plus, the lifestyle which we have, smoking, drinking, just staying up late at night, all of these basically minute things keep adding up, and it affects your health basically. And because this affects even air pollution, something which you really can't do anything about. What do you do about air pollution? It's just there. But for people living in Delhi, it's 16 to 17 cigarettes you're smoking every single day. Just imagine the amount of harm you're doing into your body. But okay, what can you do? What can you do to improve your health? Again, there are antioxidants similar to glutathione and collagen. There are antioxidants like coenzyme Q10, which you can have to reduce the oxidative stress in your body and to be able to improve your sperm health. Which again, this awareness needs to be going on because every doctor recommends it. These are things which doctors recommend, but a lot of people don't go to doctors. That's the reason why we have to go to them to be able to educate them more about this. Basically.
So do we need to take a doctor's consultation before understanding what kind of vitamins do you need to take or what kind of supplements you need to take?
For some cases, yes. For some cases, it might not be necessary. For example, yes, vitamins primarily work on what are you deficient in. So definitely a blood test of are you deficient in vitamin D, vitamin zinc, etc. You know that these things will definitely help you, and that's why you are deficient in them, and you take the vitamins for that. In some cases, it's extremely important anyway. For example, for a woman who is trying to conceive. I'm sure even when you were a few years ago, then folic acid, iron or something which every doctor recommends. Basics. So these are things which you anyways need because at that time your body's requirement for this is elevated. So you must have them irrespective of taking a test or something or that for the specific period. So that's how we make our multivitamins.
And you won't believe, Sahil, these things doctor only used to address at that time after you're pregnant. Not before you are. So the basic things that they used to check was your follicular study and all of that, but nothing to do with the basic of whether your iron is okay, whether you need ferronium, and I think that's the medicine. So everything used to be checked after you've conceived.
Exactly. And the problem is that number one is that when do we go to a doctor, or when do couples go to a doctor? They go to a doctor after they know that they have conceived. Okay, which is also doctor, now that my test came and I'm pregnant, now let's start planning. But the thing is that number one, the time of conception, the first 2 to 2.5 weeks is when the baby's brain development happens, spinal cord development happens. And during this time, if your body is deficient in nutrients, then that is the time it's affecting the baby the most. This might seem very new that, okay, to pehle hum log karte nahi the, but you'll start seeing that, kids whose weight is not increasing, the height is not increasing. These are just magnified effects of what has happened when they're in your womb. Because the nutrition, that's the time when they're growing.
Conceived,
That's the time when they're growing at the fastest pace possible, basically. And that time, if your body does not have the right nutrients, it's not being able to pass it on to the child. And that is where all the problems can start happening, basically. It can be neural tube defects. It can be preterm birth. It can be uterine. There's so many different things which can happen, basically. So that's where, and the problem is that it's not also when you conceive, you should start having these multivitamins or these vitamins 5 to 6 months before you want to conceive, so that your body has the time to replenish them and be ready. If you start having it just the day you conceive, you don't even know the day you conceived. So that's where the problem starts. That's where preconception health becomes very important, which is also what we're trying to really advocate for and push very strongly.
I heard many medical terms. For a commerce student, medical terms. So did having doctors at home help before starting Dame Health?
Yeah, so definitely my father is the biggest pillar of support. Him being a gynecologist, all the gyan which needs to comes from him anyway. And not only what's the theoretical part of it, but what are customers actually feeling, where the gap is lying, basically. So whenever you're starting a business, one of the first things to do is to talk to the people who you're trying to address the problem for. If I'm trying to make a shampoo for you, the first thing I should be doing is, rather than making a shampoo and then showing it to you, aapko kya problem ho rahi hai? Are you suffering from dryness? hair fall, dandruff, etc., and then make a shampoo on that basis.
Yeah.
The good part is that since he deals with patients in and out, he has got such a first-hand experience, things which the patient maybe won't even tell a brand or their own husband. Basically,
Yeah.
they would
come and
discuss with the gynecologist. So the problems which they face, where exactly the problem is lying, is something which we know at such a minute detail that it gives us that power to make supplements which really work for them, basically.
So it was like research studies.
Research study, yes.
Yeah, so Dr. Rajiv is looking at seeing the
absolutely.
patients, and he exactly knows what every woman is going through, what every man is going through, and it was like research study for you.
Absolutely. And the reason why that's important is because today there are so many brands that come up for vitamins and supplements. Every second day you would hear about a new brand coming up with new vitamins and new supplements. The thing is that there is a lot of science that goes behind what is important, what is good, what is bad. Abhi, with the food pharma coming in, now people have started reading labels. That's also food labels.
Yeah.
It's very distant to actually read nutraceutical labels to see, acha, vitamin C itna hai, actually itna hona chahiye. People don't see that. So which is the reason why it's very easy for a brand to just put in whatever rubbish that they want to and sell it to the consumer with good packaging, and the consumer would never get to know. That's where, coming from a science-backed point of view, coming from a very strong ethical standpoint of, okay, we need to do something which is very, very, which is only very effective for our patients, is something which really helped us. And that's basically what our advantage is. We really take very pride in that the supplements which we make, these are the supplements which we don't tell other doctors to prescribe. These are things which we prescribe to our patients as well. Because we have that level of confidence that this is something which we made with the utmost amount of research, and we have every single data to back up what we're doing, basically. So
tell me something, Sahil. You came back.
Yeah.
You came back from the US. Yeah. You had your share of work and everything. You came back. How did you even, come up with this thing of coming up with Dame Health? Like, what was the thought process? What did you want to do? Like, okay, you started your own business, but why the medical line? Like, what was that moment? So
I was working in the US for a year after my college, and that's the time when I was in this rigmarole of what should I do? What should I start off with? And this is something which I feel everybody faces, because everybody knows they want to start a business, but kya chalu kare, basically. And I feel the one thing which really helped for me, and I feel something which I have seen which works for a lot of people as well, is first try to understand what is your strength. Like, for example, I realized that my strength is, okay, I am from a health background. My family is from a health background. We know a space very well, better than a lot of people know the space well. So that sort of delta which somebody else needs to reach where I'm already at is very high. So which means that it's giving me an advantage. So I have a better chance of succeeding in this business compared to somebody else. Now, on the other hand, somebody might, since I told you I'm very fascinated by coding. Every child, I'm sure, I want to be this person with the backpack and, going and working on a startup where, I'm working with AI and I'm making this very cool thing which I'm showing to investors. That's something which even I really wanted to do. And I really thought that, okay, this is something which would be very, very cool. Just imagine I'm working in an AI startup. It's so cool to say that, I'm building something, and I'm building a robot, or I'm building a... And social media has portrayed it to be the future. The future, So definitely that's that's one thing which really excites you, which is one part. And second thing is what your strength is. I feel both of them merging is very, very important. And that is where I felt that, while there are a lot of things which excite me apart from health is something which is my strength. And secondly, I am somebody who, when we've grown up, the table talk conversations of, what are the problems which are coming in the health and wellness space? What are the things which women are facing right now? What is the problem with some of the medicines or the supplements which are there in the industry which are not being able to cater to the people who are there? So that conversation was always around me. So I feel it was a very natural extension for me to come into this line. Apart from that, I've always been a person who prioritizes my health. I won't say I'm the extremely healthy, health freak, but on the other hand, I've always taken very healthy choices for myself and a very health conscious that way. So I feel that was sort of the natural extension which I really wanted to go. And again, I feel that as I kept working more and more on the business, it gave me more clarity of, where are we trying to head towards. Okay. And then, ultimately one thing led to another, and I'm completely nosedive deep
So I'll share a story that I just saw on Varun Khaitan, founder of Urban Company. Yeah. He was on a podcast, and he was being asked, how did you come up with the, it really fascinates me to know how did you even think of this, that you need to start this to make a difference. So he said, we were in Delhi, my partner and I, we went on the streets of Delhi, and we 6 to 7 months, we spoke to every person on the road.
Yeah.
What problems are you facing in your daily life? And then they mentioned that, we don't get a plumber, we don't get a carpenter, we don't get this. And that's when the seed for Urban Company happened. And then after 6-7 months, when they started Urban Company, so the podcaster asked him, like, then how did you promote it? He said, we went again on the streets and we told them, ab hum shuru kar liye, ab aap service lo. And he said, nobody was ready to take the service there. So then the marketing part started.
Yeah.
So coming back to Dame Health, how important is marketing, or how important was marketing to begin with to promote Dame Health?
I think it's paramount. Like, I think number one, being from a marketing degree myself, I feel I have been completely humbled to the core of understanding how difficult marketing is and how important marketing is, because a lot of people say good products market themselves. I feel it's to a very small extent, but you need to be the loudest cheerleader for your brand and to be able to create that buzz about the products, especially when you're a brand which is starting and it's a self-funded brand.
Yeah.
You don't come in with huge big bucks of investors from the very first get-go. Then you have to also be very smart about how are you reaching to a very big audience. Otherwise, it's very easy. Chalo, theek hai, ek Deepika, matlab, like, I asked Deepika to come on board. I asked Ranveer to come on board. I asked Ali to come on board. Brand ban gaya mera. Chalo. Because automatically you've got a million eyeballs on your brand.
Yes.
This way, you really have to. I feel this is the good way as well, because the thing is, ideas don't come fully formed. This is something which Mark Zuckerberg said, and this is something which really resonated with me, because as you keep working on it, you start realizing what you can change. So if you see the first iteration of Dame Health, the logo, the branding, the way what we're saying about the brand's introduction, it's very vague basically, because we ourselves don't have a lot of idea of what we're trying to build. As we keep progressing, our dialogue becomes more fine-tuned. We start understanding what do we want to focus on, what kind of branding, what kind of packaging, who do we want to cater to. I want to make a brand about women. Chalo, I'm catering to every single woman in India. That's not how it doesn't work like that. So you start realizing that out of 140 crore people in India, out of that, there are different consumer brackets, like, consumer A, consumer B, consumer C, consumer D. Consumer A is the one who have multiple subscriptions, Netflix hua, Amazon hua, etc. etc. Consumer B is probably the people who are shopping. So consumer A would be a Nature's Basket, maybe like a Fresh Isle, or some all these stores. Consumer B might be local kirana store as well. It might be maybe Spencer's as well, or some other. So that's how the segmentation keeps broken down. Now you need to understand that not everybody in India has the purchasing power to purchase the specific product which you have. So automatically the 140 crore comes down to around 4 to 5 crores only. It's a huge, I keep forgetting this number, but I believe that people say middle class. People think that, okay, everybody thinks that, okay, we are all coming in middle class because, we've all come from humble beginnings. So we all come in middle class. But middle class is actually somebody who has annual salary of less than 1 lakh. I think that's what I remember. Actually, the range of income groups in India is so vast, is something which sometimes you don't end up thinking.
Yeah.
And that's why you realize that, the consumer group which you have is so small. And how to cater to them specifically, how to reach the right consumer is very important basically. We keep running ads on Instagram, but the ads reach to a lot of people who are not a consumers. So keep trying to filter that out to get to the right person. And what does the person want? For example, people who are millennials, Gen Z, they want more experiences.
Yeah.
They want a brand to host a pop-up or host some sort of a show or something like that, rather than just giving ad after ad about my product basically. Yeah. So it's a constant rigmarole, but I feel it's extremely important. And I think getting the marketing right is something which is sort of the make or break point of most brands basically.
So your father should be proud of you that you did marketing, because your business chalega nahi bina marketing ke.
Hota hi hai.
Okay. So did you discuss it with your friends when you initially thought of it?
Yeah, I did discuss it with my friends.
And what was their feedback?
Again, I feel it's very difficult for anybody to really put a pen down and say that, this idea will work versus this idea won't work. And I feel the one is that the few things which you start seeing is that, okay, is there an actual need for the product? Yes. I asked my female friends, do you know of a brand which is sort of like a gynec best friend for you? Somebody who can actually answer the questions which you have. A community where, you feel safe enough to ask the questions which you need to, and where, you can sort of get vitamin supplements to actually improve your health. The answer was no. Nobody knows of a brand like this. And that is where we feel...
Before Dame Health, I didn't know any brand.
So that's why we felt that, this gap is huge, which needs to be filled. That's why we wanted to really come in. Again, just to give you an example, since you mentioned urban company, I did explore other ideas as well. So I had an idea that I named the brand. I was very young when I did this, but I named the brand Auxilia. I was like very young. Basically, it's some Latin term for help or something like that. But the main thing was similar to urban company. I used to have we used to change like house help as fast as we used to change clothes basically. So I was like, there must be a better way to do this, where I'm maybe like a sort of like an Uber system, but for house help, where you can see the rating, you can see what they're good at.
Yeah.
For example, you want somebody for cleaning, but the person is good at cooking. Somebody's good at cooking.
Yeah.
So does the person know how to speak English? Does the person know how to babysit? There are so many different things which you need in IE or somebody who's a house help, and it's very unorganized right now. So I thought that this is something which I really want to do as well. This is when I was
and right? There's a brand like that now.
Yeah.
I don't remember
one is
the name.
Broomies, yeah.
Broomies, yes.
So Broomies is a brand like that now. It's a little bit of a different system where they train people and then people go out. I was trying to do it more on the lines of people already are skilled in one part. And today, for example, somebody is skilled in being a cook. They're earning a similar salary. Somebody who's not skilled, because you didn't have the metric to judge them. But if somebody is good, why not pay them a high salary? You would be happy to pay somebody a high salary who already knows how to make Thai, Mongolian, etc. rather than you needing to teach them.
Yeah.
And the little bit of the headache goes away from your place that everybody's asking you कि घर में मतलब क्या नया बना. So I feel that's something which I really felt was a major problem. But at the same time, 2-3 things is that difficulty of the business. Because the more unorganized the segment is, the more moving parts there are, and there are more things involved to build that business. Everything is difficult. Maybe if not this, maybe I would have considered that of maybe doing that. Yeah. But again, that's an idea which I feel somebody should really pick and try to really solve that in some part. But yeah.
So if you were not doing Dame Health, what would you be doing?
I would still be doing some sort of business. Again, I think somewhere in health line as well, because this is something which I really feel is my passion. Maybe health and tech rather than just health maybe. But otherwise I'm very happy doing data math.
So who was the first person who said, okay, fine, Sahil, just go for it?
I think it was my parents, yeah.
Parents?
So it was my parents who said that, just go for it. Let's see what happens. And initially there were so many things which were going on in my mind. I'm 23, 24 years old. I don't know the B of building a business. I don't know how to hire people. I don't know how to manage people. There are so many things which, all things are, whatever you do, you have to figure out everything which you're doing. And it's horribly daunting. So that was the first thing. Second thing is that, can I build a women's health and wellness business being a male? Will people actually trust?
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah. So will people trust a brand?
Yeah.
That okay, you don't face the problems yourself. So how can you build something for women's health? And this is a question which I had for a very long time in my head of if I am the right person to build Dame Health, and if this would be the right platform for me. And over the many months and now 1.5 years of me working on this, I really feel that the answer is yes. The reason being is, again, it's about how well you understand somebody's problem.
Yeah.
The best example is my father. My father is a gynecologist. Being a gynecologist, he's never felt any of the problems which women face. But it's about being empathy. That empathy needs to come of you really being able to understand where people come from. And when the society, when the world is pushing away their problems, saying that ye to hota hi hai, ye to chalta hi hai, that's where you really dive deep into to understand why are they facing what they're facing. How can you really help somebody and bring value to them by your products and services? So I really feel that this is what the purpose which I had, and I feel that I'm very happy doing this. Yeah.
So more than gender, I didn't think gender in today's generation is an issue, because everybody speaks about everything very openly. Boys, girls, not like in our times. There were different kind of conversations that we had with men, different kinds of conversations we had with women. But your age, I feel such a young age you've come, and you're talking about such big topics and such big issues that you want to handle. So did people take you seriously?
So this is a thing which again I used to think about a lot. Firstly, I used to think about, can I hire people older than me? Will they listen to me? And being so young, will people take me seriously? To my surprise, from day one, everybody has taken me seriously.
Really?
And I have never had
That's
somebody.
a big feat. That's a big feat.
Yeah,
To talk
like,
about
you know,
gynecological issues
yeah.
at such a young age, and people actually, warming up to it.
This is something which has really come as a very pleasant surprise to me, that people do take me very seriously. Also because I think I speak to them, because I've done my due diligence, I've done my research. When I speak to them and I'm answering the question, I can answer the question with confidence, and I can answer the question according to what they want to actually understand and learn. So I think that confidence comes across when I'm talking to them. People
So
have
maybe
taken.
you've done your homework also really well, right?
Yeah, like even for example, when we're putting up at all of these different exhibitions or fairs, like Enchanted Garden, etc.
Yeah.
Over there, there's so many women that are constantly coming up, and protein is one of our best-selling products. We recommend protein to so many people, and a lot of people, unfortunately, with protein as well, there is so much lack of awareness about the importance of protein. And when people come to me, within 2.5 minutes, I have to tell them why protein is important, why protein supplements are important, and why you should try my protein. That entire journey has to be covered in a matter of a minute and a half, because people are constantly coming and going. But that's where I used to explain the importance of protein, and people listen. Not because I'm a gynecologist, not because I'm a nutritionist, but because I'm somebody who's a brand owner, but somebody who really understands this space as well as somebody who's a gynecologist or nutritionist, because I've done my homework that well. Like today, if you can pick any protein powder in the market, and I know what the ingredients are. I know what they're doing good, what they're doing bad, what ingredient works well for who. So these are things which, once you start doing, people...
You've done your research.
Yeah, so people do listen. So it's something which I've been very glad about. Yeah.
So now for my viewers, that Dame Health is in Calcutta. I'm sure you're supplying pan-India, but the base is in Calcutta.
Yeah.
So like you said, you're doing things for coming up with products for men's fertility issues. So even over the years, I feel men are a little still conservative. So did they warm up to you as much as women did?
This is again something which is quite surprising to us, that usually men don't discuss fertility issues with a gynecologist or a urologist. Usually it's very rare, like okay, अब ये problem यहाँ तक पहुँच गई है तो अब चलते हैं. Otherwise most of the times they will not.
जब कोई रास्ता नहीं है
then they ultimately visit doctor. Otherwise that's the last resort basically for them. In that segment, when some people do realize that they are having a problem, and sometimes it's an awkward conversation to discuss with your partner, and sometimes just how society has made it, for some reason people feel a little embarrassed also that there's something which is not right with my body, which is the reason why I'm having this issue, which is not the case. There are a lot of the times which things are not in your control, which is the reason why it's happening. The good part is a lot of men who do realize this, they are looking for solutions, and they're looking for solutions which they don't have to really discuss with somebody,
speak about it,
which is the reason why some of our, even though we are primarily a women's health and wellness brand, our best selling products are also male products. Our men's preconception products, men's fertility products work very, very well. Also because people are looking for that solution which they can really, that level of discreet, or that discussion is something which they want to have, basically, that if I'm able to solve this issue, if I'm able to speak to a doctor discreetly, maybe like a brand's doctor, and have vitamin supplements which are clinically proven and can help me, they are finding a lot of value in that. And that is something which we didn't, again, this is something which we didn't see when we started the brand. As we kept going on, we are realizing that this is a huge space. We usually never pitch our fertility products at any exhibition or any. People don't, again, it's very awkward for somebody to just come and pick up a men's fertility multivitamin. Women might do it, but men don't do it. So which is the reason why even at exhibitions or at stalls, we see that, that we keep the products there usually, but we don't really talk about it a lot. If somebody wants to come and somebody wants to have a look, that's great. Then we can obviously explain more about that. But usually this is something which people do prefer doing over a call or doing via doctor consultation.
So I think reaching out to doctors in Pan India would be better.
Yeah, that is something which we do. And plus we also offer doctor consultations online. So for somebody who's having a problem. Yeah. So we partnered with part-time gynecologists who are experts in their field. And we sort of schedule the consultation between the customer and
that's very convenient.
The doctor. So they can discuss it. They can get an online prescription for the issue that they're facing. They can track of, how they're doing. And then they can always come back to the doctor and say, this worked for me. This didn't work for me. So on that basis, yeah.
So are your products available on counter, behind the counter, or they need a prescription?
It's over the counter. You don't need a prescription for
You don't
any
need a
of our
prescription.
products. Our products are available on Amazon, on our website. We're now in talks with Frank Ross as well to keep the products. Products are available in multiple places. You don't need a prescription for it.
Okay. That's so interesting to know, Sahil. It's really fascinating, your journey, till now. So tell me something. I'm sure initially when you started, things didn't go well as planned,
Yeah.
part of life. So how did you handle the challenges? How did you handle the failures or setbacks? I would say not failure, but exactly. But setbacks or, people demotivating you. How did you handle?
This is something which I feel is still something which I constantly try to figure out, because people say that when you start a brand, or when you start anything, any business that you start, there will always be some failure coming your way, especially if you're starting something new where even though I've had a health background, but again, the consumer doesn't care about what your background is. The consumer doesn't, they only care about how good your product is and how well you pitch your product and how you explain the benefit of your product, basically. So I feel that the constant trial and error of what's right and what's wrong is where a lot of failure will always come in whatever you're doing, basically. And it used to put me down to a certain extent, because I feel that when you're starting a brand, that enthusiasm of everything is very rosy and things are going nice, your branding is coming, your packaging is coming, but there will always be something which is constantly going wrong. It's like it's every day. Like for our brand specifically, like how, since we work with manufacturers for our products, selecting the right manufacturer, having the right selecting the right ingredients with them, and then discussing of the timelines of the products, etc., is a huge thing, basically. So for example, just right now we're currently constantly in battle with the manufacturer because a lot of our products are out of stock, because the shipment is getting delayed. People want the product, doctors want to recommend the product.
That's nice, no?
Yeah.
Out of stock.
Yeah, exactly.
That must be a thrilling feeling.
People like the product, doctors want to recommend the product, but they're not being able to do that because the shipment is getting delayed. So there are so many things which keep going wrong here and there, and I feel like I used to get very impatient, like things are just not going according to how I want to go. And that's where I thought of it from a different point of view. The moment I think of it from, okay, I don't want to build a brand in the next just 2 or 3 years, that urgency of getting everything right immediately goes away. And that's where I start thinking that, okay, Dame Health is something which is sort of my baby, and I want to grow this for the next 10 years. Every problem that I have, every thing that I get irritated about gets pushed away, because all of that just seems so minute after that. Because okay, something is getting delayed. How much will it get delayed? 10 days, 15 days, 20 days. I am really playing more of a marathon rather than a race. You still try to do whatever you can do best. And I know that I'm doing my best every single day. I think that's something which only you can answer for yourself, that if you're doing your best. Beyond that, I have just you have to just put things aside. Otherwise, you can't be sane working in a brand.
So Sahil, what is the one skill that you feel that has helped you the most in building Dame Health?
I think the one skill that has really helped me build Dame Health is, this is going to be a very, very cliche answer, but it is really putting in that extra effort in whatever I do. So hard work. The reason being is because, for example, even when I was in school, I am not the Aryabhatta level genius person. Everything used to come if somebody used to just read the book. एक बार चलो पढ़ लिए, पढ़ के एग्जाम देके आ गए. They used to score A levels and everything. It used to take me one revision. Sometimes I used to write notes to actually get through what I'm doing. So that hard work is something which has always been with me, even in college. I've always been the one who's spending the time in the library to actually do my due diligence.
That's why 3 majors, no?
वो तो करना ही पड़ता. So otherwise, for example, if there's a project of designing something on a PowerPoint presentation, I can spend an hour on it and do something, but I can spend that 2 hours on it and actually make it just more better, because that's my own satisfaction that, okay, I've done it to the best of my ability. And I feel that's something which has always been in me, that, if I'm doing something, I'll do it properly and I'll do it with my whole, heart and soul. And yeah, I think that's what we do. And I think that's the main reason why we're able to push, quite with a good thing. Like, for example, we're planning to do a brand shoot. Okay. Now for the brand shoot, again, you can just sort of select some images here and there, and you can just wing it and go into the brand shoot. But we go through so many different iterations. First we go on Pinterest, 4-5 people in the team. We're all going through Pinterest. We're making Google slides. It's a 120 page deck of just different pictures. Then we sit and we analyze which picture to go with which product. Then we start segregating them depending on, okay, if it's a hand picture, if it's how the lighting is, etc. So that much amount of work needs to go into everything that you're doing to be able to actually get the result. Everything which brands do, the images that they come up with, the packaging that they put, the amount of mehnat which you think goes into it, it's at least 10 to 15x more than that, because once you start doing it, problems just start cropping up from nowhere. So that's where the more effort you put into it, I think that's literally it for not just me, but for any brand owner who's building a very good brand.
So you would suggest people who are starting their startup and all to just work hard to begin with, to work hard.
To work hard. And I would say that one thing which again helps me a lot is to really keep my eyes and ears open. For example, I always wanted to become an entrepreneur. So I used to think, what are the different ways I can prep myself better? So I read a lot of books on entrepreneurship. The very classics like 0 to 1 Hua, all of that books I've all read.
Which is your favorite?
There's a book called Rework. So Rework is, I think it's by Eric Rice. The book is basically about how whatever you do, you can do it at a much more efficient way. So for example, do you really need 5 people working on this? Or can you manage with 2? Do you really need, it's how startups work basically, and how you can organize a team better to do better work basically. So that's a very good book which I would recommend to anybody who's building a startup. But the one thing which I realized that all these books that are written, they're written with a lot of context in the person's mind because they've gone through that. So when I used to read those books, I used to feel that, okay, I've read all these books now, so I'm fully prepared and, building a thing. But when you read those books, it's without context because you're not able to put the problem which they've come up with to actually give that solution. Now, when I actually look back and then read the book, it actually works much better. So I feel that, reading books also comes with context. As you're going through that specific problem, to read a book on that makes much more sense rather than reading all the 15 books. I won't remember half the books which I've read otherwise. So I think that works very well. And apart from that, I think there are so many good podcasts, good courses. This is something which I feel wasn't there 10, 12 years ago. But there's so many good podcasts, good courses which, people can do.
And they're free.
They're free. Yeah. The biggest free thing. I'm going to probably discuss this more later as well. But Shark Tank, even Shark Tank India, it's the best way for somebody to learn how to build a business. Yeah. There are such beautiful things. You feel that, okay, I'm so young. How can I start a business? 18-year-old people are starting a business. I don't have funds. How should I start a business? Yeah. People are taking a loan sometimes, starting something and, making something so big out of it. I don't know anything. People who are coming from completely different backgrounds are coming together to make something amazing. So this is so inspiring to see that, if they can do it, why can't I? Why, what's there in me which I can't do it? You just have to believe in yourself and you'll go through it. The one thing is that people see Shark Tank as more of a serial or like a show where कि अच्छा इनका idea बहुत अच्छा था, चलो idea पे focus किए, but the other part of it, for example,
but इस investor को ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए था, and उनको ऐसे pitch नहीं करना चाहिए था.
So that if you leave aside the drama, for example, how did they start by pitching the product? Or for example, who did they reach out to first? How much did they spend on marketing? How much do they spend on their packaging? If you start getting these percentages which every brand talks about, you'll get a very good base. Okay, other brands spend this much. This is how much I also need to spend. I cannot go beyond this. Those are good. Almost 50 or 60% of the questions which people have will get answered from Shark Tank if you just go and start seeing the different episodes which are there, but see them with a pen and paper in your hand to note down, to make notes of what exactly people are saying and how they've come up with the journey. I think it's a course hi hai pura apne ekdam.
So Sahil, do you think books, we are reading books of successful people. Yes, we are reading about their journeys, how they started, but we are still reading about successful people. Again, on Shark Tank, people come when they're successful to a point. Do you think it's setting unexpected expectations in the minds of people who want to start their business or startup?
I really think it does. Yes. Because the reason why is that I really hope that people don't think of it this way. But the thing is that startup is nothing but a business which you're starting. The word startup is very, very glorified, and way the startup functions is also very glorified. That you're getting these investors on board,
angel
and it's
investors, unicorns,
it's very rosy, it's very this, but ultimately it's so much pain that you have to go through every day. I know. I wake up in the morning, I think about the brand. I'm having breakfast, I think about the brand. I go to office, I think about the brand. I come back home, I have dinner, I think about the brand.
It's become your breath, right?
It becomes, and it has to. The thing is that when you're starting something only for the reason of it's the fame or, seeing of, how exciting it is, I would say that's not the right thing to do. If you genuinely believe that, you're doing something which, you really believe in, and a product which you really feel will do a lot of good to the person, then only should you start something, because the rosy days will go away very soon.
Yeah.
And the part where, okay, I have to wake up at, sometimes I have to stay up till 2 to 3 a.m. to work on something. That's only because that's the time when I know that, this is something which I really love doing. If you don't love doing that, you won't be able to put that extra mile in, no matter how, how ambitious as a person you are.
So you feel you should start up, do your startup if you're passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing which I genuinely feel is that you should start as early as possible. This is one big thing which I was thinking that, okay, once I'm coming back from the US, should I work somewhere for a few years and then start my own business? But the thing is that I'm realizing that I keep going to these different events where, there's so many different founders. The good thing to see is that so many people are 20, 25 years older than me, but they're facing the same problem which I am facing. And a lot of the problems which they're facing, I've already figured that out. So you can see the huge amount of time.
So you think age really helps? Like being young really helps?
It helps like crazy. Because right now, and I think this is if somebody takes away anything from the podcast, I feel it should be this, that start as early as possible. Because right now, number one, for most of people, a decent financial backing, you have a little bit of room to play with at this age.
Yeah.
Once you get married, then you've got somebody else's responsibility on you. Yeah. And then the stress level anyways goes up. Once you're having a family, then leaving a job becomes even more difficult, which I'm sure is the problem for so many different people. Because once you've got a stable salary, stable job, then to say no to it, to cut it down, and you're not going to be making money from day one. You're going to be making money from maybe year 1, year 2. The brand is going to be making money.
Initially, it's just putting in. And when you're going to draw a salary is a big question mark. Nobody knows that. So you need to have that amount of risk-taking appetite, which is only going to decrease as you grow older. So I feel I have really done this at a very good age, because I feel that right now I have the leeway to fail. Yeah. You will fail. Things will not go the way you want it to go. They will not go the way you want it to go. And I feel at this point in time, again, because I am young, I have way more energy. I can devote 7-8 hours to something, and I have that energy. I feel as I'll grow older, it'll sort of start dying down somewhere. This is the reason why I feel, to anybody, if you want to start a brand, start it as soon as possible with whatever small resources which you have, and try to just start. One thing which I felt that, I used to spend weeks on deciding कि अच्छा मेरा logo कैसा होना चाहिए, अच्छा मेरा this packaging, this purple shade should be up, should be down. The customer doesn't care. Number one, you have 5 people who are following your brand. They don't care at the moment. First, start by building a product. Start understanding, are you making a product which people need? The product needs to be iterating. As you figure that out, you can figure other things out at the same time. If you wait for 7-8 months to launch something, the entire steam of that brand starts losing away, basically. So start small. You can maybe don't even show your page to your friends. Just show it to your family. Start by building on the product. Start by putting some things on the page. Once you start putting, for example, things on your page, you start seeing कि अच्छा ये font ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए, ऐसा होना चाहिए, ये product right में होना चाहिए, text left में होना चाहिए. These things you can only figure out once you've actually done it. Yeah. And I feel करते you just start getting better. And these things can be changed, right? So the logo can be changed, the font can be changed, everything can be changed.
We put too much effort into thinking about us. People really don't care about us as much as we think. People care about you having a good product, definitely. But not everybody is seeing कि अच्छा इनका तो logo change हो गया. Oh shit, इनका logo change हो गया. People don't think of it that way. Yeah. So, you have the time to iterate. And right now, the people who are following you the first, these are people who are the closest to you. So it's a closed circle. If you don't give yourself the leeway to fail here, then at the bigger stage, more and more people will be seeing you, and at that time it's even more difficult. So do the experimentation which you want to do. Do whatever you want to do on the page, on your profile. If you build a horrible product, right now you can show it to people, and later on, for example, now if we have even the smallest of thing in our product, for example, kabhi the manufacturer sends a packet which might be a little defective. Packaging is torn slightly, etc., etc. So I can't see it. Sometimes the packaging person misses that. So they send it to the customer. The customer calls up. I'm an influencer. How can you send a packet which is slightly torn to me? I'm going to put this on Instagram. And the more eyeballs you start catching, the more the stakes start increasing. So when you're small, you have the option to fail without people actually looking at you. So why not make that mistake then?
Oh, that's so nice.
Huh.
So much information about a startup, firsthand.
Yeah.
And so, Sahil, now, like we discussed, startup has become a big fancy word
Yeah.
with angel investors and,
Yeah.
people starting so many startups and failing and again starting and funding like Shark Tanks. All these are startups that come up. Do you think it's the right time for India to begin with startup, or is it a good time for startups to, go pan India or maybe even internationally?
So I'll answer the question in two parts. Number one, for India specifically, I think it's the golden age to start something in India.
Why would you say that?
So firstly, definitely for people who are considering doing a job or doing something else in a different country, they're working there also because they're smart. Like, they've got a good understanding of, how the world works. They've got great exposure to great brands, etc. India is at a point where it's growing. India is the fastest growing economy in the world. People are having more purchasing power. After COVID also, you want to spend on not just must-haves, but should-haves. Like, okay, I've got a chair, but I want a leather chair. Or, I've got a shoe. Now I just don't want a shoe which is just like, that looks good. I want something which is comfortable as well.
Yes.
So that's where more and more opportunities of good brands are starting to stem in India. And if you have a good understanding of a specific segment, it can be shoes, it can be hair, it can be makeup, anything. Even if you don't have an understanding, something which you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
If supposing you apply, you're passionate about makeup. You see the brand which you're using, it's not giving you the feel which you want to.
Yeah.
There will be people like you out there who are having the same issue. Why not build a brand for that, basically? So that way I feel it's a great time to build a brand. Also because the amount of resources which you have in India are immense in terms of, just because the workforce that is there, finding good people to hire, good talent to hire is something.
And I think it's feasible.
It is feasible. Yeah, it is feasible. And hiring good talent, getting good. So all of these things I think work very well for you to build a very good brand in India. People are really looking for homegrown stuff. People do value homegrown stuff.
They do.
So when that option is coming, why don't you be the brand to be able to do that? So I think that's really makes a huge difference. The only one thing which I feel is that in terms of the entire startup thing, a lot of people, I would say, think of, at least this is what we try to think of, is that startup is nothing but a dhanda. आप धंधा चला रहे हैं, so it has to be profitable from day one. That is how we see it, is because in India as well, startups are glorified. When you hear of a startup, you hear of it either when it's going for an IPO or either when it's getting funded.
Yeah.
But a funding is nothing but you giving somebody money to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
They've not done that yet. So then why it's so much of cheer about the funding, basically?
So we were starting off startups. What are your views on that?
So basically, that's the reason why I feel that if you're starting a startup, you should start thinking of how to make the brand profitable from the first day. The reason being is that there are something called funding winters, which happen. That basically sometimes when the economy is doing very well, a lot of investors want to put in a lot of money into your brand. But there will be times when investors don't want to put in money. And that's the time when brands get into a very difficult position because they don't have any leeway to actually continue the brand which they're doing. So if you're having good financials, that's where the financial part comes in of, having good financials and starting to think of how can I build a profitable brand from day one. Then I feel that works much better. You're not reliant on investors only to build the brand, but you can build it yourself. I feel this works good for a consumer brand specifically. There are some brands where, you're building new technology.
Yeah.
So for that, you do need a lot of funding and investment to be able to put into that. But at least this is what our belief is for a consumer brand. I think you should try to start with something by building it like a dhanda rather than like a startup.
Oh, that's a new perspective actually, because everybody says कि 1-2 साल तो सोचो ही मत, पैसा आएगा ही नहीं.
Yeah. आएगा नहीं वो तो है ही है, but at least to start thinking in that direction of, how can I achieve that from day one? Because the moment you have investor money, then that goal becomes even further away.
Yeah.
And then the day that stops, you haven't thought about your end game, and that becomes a difficult game to play. That's what we're in right now. So we do constantly try to see, we're not profitable at the moment, but we try to figure out a way in which, how can we keep inching towards profitability. So yeah, goal is that's a journey there.
So Sahil, do you think you can scale up your business without investors?
Yes, I do feel that there are a lot of, so when you don't take money, the word is called bootstrapped. So bootstrap business means a business that does not take any money. And I feel that is very, very possible. And I feel that is something which you should do. That is something which we are planning to do as well. The reason being is that a bootstrap brand is a brand that is forced to make its business model work in a way that it is healthy financials. And an investor or anybody would always want to invest in a business which is self-sufficient, basically. I want to make money with you. I don't want to have my money devoured in your brand, basically. So when in the initial stages as well, in the first 1-2 years, if you're able to build something which is self-sufficient, then shows a founder which has a lot of good discipline, a brand that has good business model, and investors really want to invest in that brand if you've got a good growth. अब वही होता है कि supposing this is something which I used to feel a lot that FOMO. There's so many other brands that are coming up with so much of money and they're pouring into advertisement after advertisement, left, right, and center, basically. But the thing is that the bigger your spend is, the bigger the mistake will cost you, basically. Right now is a very good time for you to figure out working very well for your brand, basically. And since it's your own money, you will be very conscious with it to spend it in those places and to get the best way out of the amount of money which you're spending. If the discipline is built, basically, which is what we're trying to do, then I feel later on when we do get the investor money, I think it will be a very good road to go down.
So do you plan to go internationally?
Yes, eventually, yes. I feel India has has a lot of scope right now, but eventually, yes, we do plan to also go internationally.
So Sahil, you've worked in the US, you've come back to India. Now you have a fair amount of work experience even in India. So how was it living in the US and then coming back to India after 4 years? And second, how was it working in the US versus working in India?
It's a very interesting question. So I think from the perspective of living in the US, I think everybody who's in India right now, who's either in college and planning to go for the postgrad or who's in school, everybody dreams of going to the US, the UK, etc. Also because you're on your own. There is nobody to tell you what you're going to do. There's nobody to tell. Nobody is there to tell you whatever you're completely on your own, and that autonomy is something which is like a fresh breath of air. Not because you're living in jail, not because of that, but still, because you just everything that you do is in your hands. And I feel that is also very important to understand, because I have seen a huge difference not only in myself but in a lot of people who stay away from family, because that autonomy, that okay, I need to see my bills, I need to see my credit card bills, I need to budget of what you need to do. These are things which
figure out your meals.
Figure out your meals.
That was like basic when you are at home.
So that is the biggest thing, basically.
Yeah, so that was basic at home, but I think that becomes such a big thing when you go abroad.
It's a huge thing. So I think living in the US has its pros and cons. The pros are definitely that the overall, the environment, the vibe, as I would call it, is just amazing. Like, living in New York, living in Chicago, there's always something going on. It's just a very lively place, and you have an amazing time there. But again, I feel the downside is that, number one, I did have a great group of friends while I was staying there in the US, even while I was working. If you don't have that group of friends, it can get quite lonely, which I know it gets lonely for a lot of people. And
it does.
You miss so much. A lot of people start moving back. Now, I think out of 80 or 90 friends who I had in the US, just 5 or 6 are there, max to max. So everybody's moved back. So the people who are staying there, it gets horribly lonely, because all your friends are back there.
You don't have family. You
don't have family. You don't have friends. So they're going out together back home. People are attending each other's weddings. People are attending each other's bachelor trips, etc. You're missing out on all of that, basically. And I feel it's a very difficult thing to do for a lot of people. And secondly, when I was living in Chicago, I am somebody who doesn't enjoy cooking. Maybe it might be different for people who enjoy cooking. But you wake up, you have to make your own breakfast. Then you're doing some work. Then, you have to make your own lunch. Then you have to go and make your own dinner. Thinking of what to make, going to the grocery, coming back, making the stuff, eating the stuff, cleaning the plate. It's a whole 1.5 hour process. Din ka mera around 3.5 hours used to go in just cooking. There are people who made
plan
something on
meals,
plan their meals. They make something on Sunday. They have it. They continue having it throughout the thing. But either you can call me Bigdawa. But I want to have different things different days. I can't have the same thing. Like, I make something on Sunday and have it throughout the week. So for me, I felt that was a huge waste of my time, as an inefficiency as well. Because in India, once you live in the US, you realize what kings and queens you're living like in India. You've got people to help you out with your food, people to help you out with your laundry, people to help you out with your making your room only. Just coming every time you come back home, you go out, I go out, I look, I want this, I want this. I pick
Yeah.
up 2, 3 clothes. The entire room is a mess. You come back, you clean the room. So you start seeing that, these small things add up so much of a time that apart from the work which you have, you don't have time to do anything else apart from that. Matlab, you can go out here and there a little bit, but that leeway is very less. In India, I have time to focus on what I want to focus on. Like, there are so
But how
many.
is it when after you came back and you started staying at home and then
So I think this is something which depends a lot on the individual family context. Like, for me specifically, like, again, because with Dame Health, it was a separate brand and something which I am personally looking into completely. So, which is why that clear division was there of, what I'm doing is what, like, what is being executed. For a lot of people who are working in the family business, it might not be that way. Sometimes it might be a difference of opinion between parents or the father wants versus what they want. That can come maybe. Sometimes for a lot of people, I've seen that, people who used to live in the US, the lifestyle was just incredible. And, once they come back, that restriction will be there about when to go, when to come. So these things will be there. That's the sort of pros and cons of, what you have while living in India versus the US. That again depends a little bit on your individual family scenario of, how the family is basically. But apart from that, I think you can also be staying in a different city. Mumbai, Delhi, just staying maybe on your own, starting something there is also another option for a lot of people if they want to do that. Working specifically, I feel that working in the US was a very good experience for me otherwise, because I feel no matter at what stage you enter the brand or the business, they really value your opinion. If I'm the youngest person in the company, if I'm in the youngest person in the meeting as well, they will listen to what I have to say. They will take it into account. And I don't feel like I'm just doing work because they want to assign me work. I'm doing work because the work which I'm doing, they'll actually use that to help them make the decisions which they're wanting to make. So that feeling of value and that purpose really came when I was working in the US. I feel that somewhere is missing in India. I haven't had a lot of corporate experience working in India. I did work for 2-3 brands when I was in India, but I feel the experience is very different where, they treat an intern more like a peon. And so these things will be there. The thing that, their life is also important. Their work-life balance is also important. That is something which is very different ways of thinking in the US. In the US, it's more of quality. If the person has spent 7 hours of quality of the time, great. I will not bother them beyond that. In India, if I'm giving them a fixed salary, हम उनसे कैसे extra काम निकलवाए, कैसे I can make them stay for like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And really, that is something which is not from the purpose of torturing them maybe, but just from the mindset कि नहीं, if I'm paying you, I own you. And you have to do whatever work. This is a very different mindset in India versus US.
Wow, Sahil, that was a lot of information about startups. That was a lot, diving into your personal life and about how today's generation thinks. So one last question. If whoever is listening to you, the youth today wants to do a lot of things, they want to be successful, they want to do everything on their own, what kind of a message would you want to give them?
So I heard of this one quote somewhere, and this is some Instagram reel that it came on, and it just changed my perspective on the way I think. If you knew how the quote goes like, how big would you dream if you knew you couldn't fail? And the moment you start thinking of it this way, you start realizing that, whatever, if I'm thinking of opening one restaurant, why one? Why not open 100? If I'm thinking of opening mom and pop shop, why not make it a big brand? One of the biggest things which I feel which restricts a lot of people is just that they don't think big enough. Like, I feel if you start thinking big enough, only then will you ever be able to have that skill or, that vision of, going that far basically. Like, I want to make Dame Health India's #1 health and wellness brand. For people listening to this, they might think I'm an idiot because, it's a very ambitious goal. But if I don't have that goal, how am I ever going to make it that far? If you don't
believe in yourself, then how would anybody else believe in you?
How will anybody else believe in you? And that's where, having a goal which is just so frightening, or, just that, it's just always this sense of restlessness in me, because I know there is so much to do to reach there basically. And I feel this restlessness is what the best thing about my life at the moment, because it always keeps me going. Every day, every night when I sleep, I am looking forward to what I'm doing next morning. Even when I'm going out for dinner, even when there is a part of my mind which is still there.
Thinking about Dame Health.
It is not the stress in my mind. It is just the love for what I'm doing, which is what I feel very happy about. And I feel this is something which I really like, when people say, do you find your purpose? I think that this is the kind of thing that, is something that makes you feel happy, where you don't see कि कितने घंटे मैंने इसमें बिताए हैं. You just
Yeah.
what I did. So for example, just like for example, Dame doesn't end up being the brand which I wanted to be and wanted to grow. I'll be very happy because number one, I put in my time and soul into it. Learned so much out of it. The time which I've put it only because I love doing what I do. And which is the reason why it's like a win-win situation for me no matter where we go basically. And when you take off that stress from your mind, I think it's very liberating. So that's the very happy thing which you can do, that, really, if you feel that there is something which you can do, just take the leap and, go forward with it. The moment you start doing it, things just fall into place. You start figuring it out.
Yeah.
One thing after the other, just it takes time. Some things come very quick to you. Some things don't come very quick to you. Like, for example, I'm somebody, like, for example, little bit of the operations part, these things come easily to me. But for example, although I'm a marketing major, but growing myself on social media, like, putting myself out there and talking a lot on reels and stuff, this is something which doesn't come easy to me. Maybe somebody who's a content creator or somebody who's very, like, who loves to put them, I'm somebody who's a slightly sort of an introvert. So I am not somebody who, this is a life, like, I don't put 1,000 stories of myself in a month or something like that. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
And that's a very big skill to have, because people want to know about your life and you can build a brand around you as well. So you can use what your skill is. Something else might be difficult for you to do. It's difficult for everybody, but choose your heart basically.
But I'm happy that you're mentioning this, Sahil, because today's youth, I feel, wants to do everything. And you have to just identify what is your strength, work on that, and let other things be handled by other people who, are skilled at it and who can do it naturally.
Absolutely.
Because even the world can see what you are skilled at, what you are not. So I think it's okay for other people to do something.
Absolutely. It is very, very important.
Yeah.
When you're starting something, initially, number one, since you're starting small, you shouldn't hire a huge team from day one.
Yeah.
So whatever you're doing, marketing, accounts, finance, do it a little bit for you to understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because, for example, if I'm hiring somebody who's an accountant, for me to be able to understand if they're doing the right thing or not, I need to have that basic knowledge in there so that the person doesn't fool me later on. It might be there for anything which I'm doing. It might be there for a video editing. Sir, इसको तो करने में ना minimum 1.5 दिन लगेंगे. But I know कि 1.5 दिन नहीं लगेंगे उसको करने में. I only know that because I have worked that minutely with the video editor before to be able to now know कि अच्छा, this is not taking.
You have knowledge, but you don't have to do it. That's the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you start doing everything, then you will never move ahead. You have to ultimately build a very strong team, which you're able to delegate work to, because your role as a founder is to only see how to grow the business. If you're following into the day-to-day management of the business, you will never go ahead, basically. And that's the main thing of, whenever you're starting something, try to see how you can build systems from day one. If a consumer is calling, अच्छा call करने के बाद उनका number कैसे note down करना है, Google sheet बनाना है, Google sheet में उनका नाम number note down करना है. It's not just on rough papers which you're not trying to find somewhere. So once you start building these things from the very get-go, one problem starts going away.
Yeah.
So it becomes just more and more easy for you.
So startups are actually like icebergs. What you see is actually not what it is. There's so much more that goes into it.
But I feel when I meet so many people now, where, I'm just randomly walking somewhere, I'm going to an event, and people tell me that, Sahil, I'm having your plant protein and it's amazing. I used to have so much of bloating and acne or constipation before, but it's nothing. And thank you so much.
That's such a proud moment.
I am telling you, it's the best feeling in the world. It's the best feeling in the world because it puts all the effort that you put in before that. It really, it makes it all worth it.
Seals the cause,
so,
right?
Yeah.
So this is what you've been working for, and that's just one sentence, and I think...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think that makes me very happy.
So I had heard a quote, and let's close with that.
Yeah.
So I had heard that dreams are not something that you have when you're sleeping, but dreams are something that don't let you sleep. So Sahil, I think you're a live example of that, like having Dame Health all over your mind all the time. And I'm so glad that you came here and shared so much. And I'm actually privileged to have you on the show. And I hope all our viewers took so much away. They had so many takeaways to take. And everybody who's starting a startup, can have so many insights into what needs to be done, what does not need to be done. And I can't be more grateful to you, Sahil, for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Especially, it's a huge honor to come on the podcast and such insightful questions. I really hope I was able to add a lot of value.
You did. People. For sure you did.
And just to motivate people to just start for whatever they're doing. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sahil. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome to The Speaking Edge. I'm Suman Manaksia, a success coach, passionate about redefining success. For me, success isn't just about personal milestones. It's about empowering others and creating a ripple effect of positive change. I firmly believe that to truly excel in life, we need to cultivate essential skills like problem solving, emotional intelligence, decision making, and resilience. These aren't just tools for professional growth, they're the foundation for navigating every challenge life throws at us. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's not just a series of conversations, it's a life university designed to help you learn and grow through real life examples. By hearing the stories of inspiring individuals, you'll discover how these skills can empower you to make a meaningful impact on your own life and the people around you. So I request everyone, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for updates.